It's the final rank amateur MiniPod field notes from the French Alps. My name is John, joined as always by co-host Ben Wyatt, and once again by special guest Jesse Kearns. Fellas, it has been an incredible trip. We've talked about skiing so far. We've talked about side trips, and let's put a bow on the whole thing and talk about your final day skiing. Of course, as we've covered, I didn't get a chance to participate in the skiing itself, but it sounds especially like by day 3, you fellas had it figured out. So why don't we start by backing up? Day 1, if we'll recall, was just feeling it out. You didn't know what you were doing and where you were going. Maybe a little frustrating. Is that right?
To say the least.
Okay. Yeah. And warm.
Hot.
Yeah. It
Beyond warm, hot.
Yeah. All right. And then day 2, you change direction, go to another part of the trail system, and less frustrating, way more satisfying. You start to get a clue about where in the world you are and finally get oriented to this whole thing. Is that right?
Yeah, you could say the gears started to click. We knew which direction to head on day 3, and that's the direction we went.
Okay. Yeah. So day 2, then there's a rest day that sets up day 3, which to hear you all tell it, because I've heard the story, sounds like you guys got it figured out. You found the good in Ports du Soleil. So Ben, kick it off. Tell us about day 3. What direction you go? Where'd you go? What were the objectives?
Yeah, so starts with obviously the gondola ride at the Supermorzine. So we went the opposite direction of day 1. Same direction as day 2. Took that lift up. And what was cool about this day, and Jesse and I had kind of already planned it out, but we were going to get to Switzerland. That was the objective, right? And so we embarked on the journey, headed towards Avaria, and from there we basically hit a system of trails and lifts that allowed us to cross into Switzerland and experience a couple runs on the Swiss Alps.
Okay. Jesse, you want to chime in? Let's talk about early in day 3. How'd you feel about things, and what was the breakthrough?
Well, what I was feeling about things was hoping my legs were going to work and being as optimistic as I could, despite the lactic acid buildup in my thighs.
Got it. Yep.
So, we do ride the Supermorzine, and that trek over there, we had been familiarized ourselves with it the second day of skiing, so it wasn't as large of a feat for us. That day, we were skiing with less people. Sarah didn't ski with us that day. So on the third day, we had a full house and a plan. That started with riding the Supermorzine, and then you ride down a short 100-yard, thoroughfare that goes right to another large lift. That lift then takes you to a series of green runs that is still kind of like that highway that then takes
Jesse,
you.
Jesse, let me stop you. I'll be remiss if I don't own up to the humble pie that I was served in that small 100-yard run on day 3. Jesse, you want to throw that into the story as well from your perspective?
This sounds good.
Well, it all has to do with the warm up and the stretching or total lack thereof, and just being a little sore after a couple days in the saddle.
Little loss of concentration.
Yeah, as we all do. You dig in, you get ready to put your bindings in, and you zig where you should have zagged, and the left heel went one way, and the right toe went the other, and then out of the corner of my eye, we see this snowboard slowly on a ghost tour, all by itself.
Unstoppable. You just had to watch it. It was gone in front of a large crowd.
Everybody looking in. There was a few claps, a couple of gasps. Everybody kind of laughed, but it slowly rode into an embankment right in front of the first little coffee shop, if you will. So Ben had a nice little stroll, 35, 40-yard stroll down there, clicked back in again. And then I'm pretty sure, if my peripheral vision serves me correctly, scooted right back into a little tail slap and fell again at the bottom of the
That's right. Two servings of humble pie on the warm up. Always stay focused, folks.
Funny how this part got left out the first time you regaled me with stories of day 3. But not
We
this
didn't
time.
catch this one on camera.
All right. All right, Jesse, pick it up where you left off.
Yeah, so the series of just kind of riding down the highway, large groups of people moving down wide to narrow turns through for going from lift to lift. It finally takes you to the large lift, which was a high-speed 6-man lift called Preclude, which I thought was really scenic and rode through those large green areas that were barely skiable in some areas. And when we looked, that I thought was fascinating, when we looked on the summer view, that was their 18-hole golf course in Avaria
Okay.
during the summer months. Yeah,
Mhm.
which I thought was really neat. So you go up a series of, because you're going up the mountain, you're actually ascending several thousand feet, because Morzine altitude in feet is 3,200 feet.
Okay.
Avaria is 5,900 feet. So those series of lifts, and of course the big Super Morzine gondola ride taking you out of the valley, gets you up several hundred. But the Proclu lift is an ascent for sure. And then right as you would ascend at the town level, you're just met with really scenic views of the town to the right, the architecture of the condos and apartments and hotels and chalets. And it's a Avaria village that is basically has no car transportation. Once you get there, you park your car and you ride around on your skis or horse-drawn sleighs.
All right.
So that Proclu lift will drop you out at one of the large intersections of Avaria, where you could zig right and head down to the après ski, many other large highway green areas where many kids and youth and families are doing a fair bit of skiing. To the left of that basically starts another valley that descends down a series of blue trails that intersect at a large intersection called the Stash. If you were to ride the Pro Clays and ride down through the Stash, is a large obstacle course of places to grind and jumps and all this stuff that were absolutely avoided by Ben and I at all costs. You get down
while children were crushing it, just so you know.
Yes. That is also one of the intersections that was kind of flanked by a red that was roped off, where we heard radio communication. So we ushered over to that area, and there were again youth, kids in teenage years, going down a series of slaloms and moguls that were flanked by flags, and taking courses and being timed and exercising courses and doing feats of skiing I've never seen actually in person, which was
Leaving it all out there,
which is really neat. Continuing on, those series of blues, we found ourselves 2 days in a row down at what we'll call the Lindray area, that had a series of lifts that went to several parts of Switzerland, and then also had 3 really great coffee shops and one of the best lasagna trays that we had down there for a mid-ski lunch. The big slope and ski area we took from there was the Mosay.
Whoa. Are you not going to tell these people about that lunch? Bring us to that lunch. Tell them about the lasagna, the pastries. Come on now.
Well, it was all part about the day 2 scope. We scoped it out on day 2 when it was a mere cappuccino and sudsy beverage stop. Once we took our rest there and assessed what our plan for day 2 and day 3, we knew once we came down from Switzerland and had the rigors of skiing in multiple countries that the lasagna was going to be the spot.
Ben, are you saying you enjoyed the lunch?
It was delicious. I got to give it to Jesse. He spotted it. He put it on the radar. And I wasn't disappointed. And I mean, we frequented this place day 2 and day 3, right? So the ladies in there began, they recognized us. They began to treat us well, and especially Jesse. They wanted more of Jesse. So it was a great atmosphere.
All right. It's that little gnome beard he's got going on. He fit right in.
They loved him. Jesse, take us from there up. Take us to Switzerland.
Okay, well, you'll have to help me a little bit because there was a couple of different lifts that we could have taken, but the main lift, I think, is what we did was took a small lift up to the Mosay lift, where we had the option of taking the Mosay or Casse, or what
Correct.
we
We
called
took the
cases,
Mosay,
and we took the Mosay. We took the
also known
Mosay.
as Alanis Morissette, is
Yeah,
what we were
yeah,
calling it.
yeah. We're fondly referring that to, and that's how you largely navigated these mountains. Were based on lifts. Uh, the names of trails really didn't help you. The only trail designations that helped you were the little circles that were green and the little circles that were blue. Any little circle that were red were to be hastily avoided.
Hey, let's talk about that. Let's talk about the trail system. So we're used to green circles, blue squares, black diamonds, double black diamonds, and where I spend most of my time in quadruple black diamonds. Not so the case in France and Switzerland.
Slightly different. A little easier to understand, right? So I think they're going green circle,
It's
blue
very
circle.
easy.
Yeah, very easy. Blue circle is going to be your intermediate,
Easy.
but palatable. The red is advanced, and from what we saw in most instances, pretty steep. We would probably equate that to a black, and then your black is for expert. And we only saw those lifts going up from afar. We never ventured anywhere near them.
Okay. All right. So okay. From departing the gondola, Super Morzine, to realizing that you have crossed an international boundary into an ally European Union country, how many lifts is it taking you to move from France to Switzerland?
Jesse, you got the map? I can guess.
Give me a quick count. Give a moment for a count. Super Morzine to Zor to Proclu, ski down, went up Lachey, and then up Mosay.
Mosay, yep, five lifts.
So
There was
5 lifts.
5 lift rides up to the point of Point de Mosay, which is 2,277 meters. One of the most special things about that ascent, as it was a little cloudy that day in the valley and cloudy pretty much in all of Avaria, actually dense fog in places. So as we skied down to the next Lindre Valley and connected to the large Mosay lift, we ascended beyond the cloud line and up to a set of peaks and a scenic vista at the Cookie Cafe. That was my highlight of the trip. I'm starting to condense down to. I'm really starting to hone in on. I think those peaks and that carpet of clouds with very small, distinct, individualized peaks was one of the prettiest things I saw there.
Agreed. It's a shame you couldn't join us, John, because it was breathtaking, right? And it was such a great view, a vast view, and there were several peaks that came up through the clouds. I mean, we took a lot of pictures. Hopefully, we pop a couple up at some point.
couple of random questions here. A ski run, you get off of a lift, and I know that the answer is different from time to time. Can you give me an average? How long are you on board or on ski from lift to lift line?
Enough times to get tired and rest on your knees and pant furiously.
So what are we skiing 20 minutes at a time, 40 minutes at a time? I mean, I think about Montana. If you string them together correctly by using greens to crisscross that mountain, you can be on your skis a good 40 minutes plus if you plan it correctly. So how long did you guys pull off?
Yeah, I'd say the shortest run right at the top of Super Morzine down to the second lift that you get on, 100 yards, right, all the way up to probably on average, I would say 10 to 15 minutes. You know, you got to keep in mind you're skiing mostly blues to get to the different lifts. So fairly good pace of play. You know, Jesse, I mean, what are your thoughts? 10, 15, maybe 20 minutes tops?
Yeah, I think it varied about every time. If it was more of those interconnecting runs to get you from lift to lift, reminds me of the when we were on top of the Demosay point and we were making our way back to Averia. That was a very well-defined, wide area that wasn't riding over the spine of a mountain. It was taking you down these long blues and actually some places where you met flats, right? Where it was a little bit tougher for snowboarders to go. And those runs were long and those were enjoyable and often, but I will say I found myself skiing 90 seconds to 2 to 3 minutes, being plenty tired and wanting to rest and check the map and know exactly where I was going. When you ski down from Averia down to the first valley into Ladre toward the Stash, there's a lot of blues and a lot of turns and a lot of intersections right there. So the good thing about skiing with Ben is he was a beacon in white snow and being an all Tennessee orange outfit that the man had on. It was top notch
That
for
was
a visual aid.
Yeah, that was impressive.
It was the
Al
perfect
also
Pantone.
Yeah, we all needed shades indoors after Ben got dressed. It was something to behold.
Well,
Um,
you weren't going to lose me.
no, cool threads, Ben. All right, so we've well established in the field notes that where we're staying in Morzine, when we visited Chamonix, when we visited, Annecy, was not very winter-like. Obviously, you ascend 1,000 meters or so, you're gonna find something different, but talk to me about snow conditions. How was it up there? Icy, slushy, powdery? Jesse.
Okay. Well, where I'll start is a couple of statistics to get back in. We started in Morzine in 3,200 feet of altitude. Averia was right around 6,000 at 5,900. So we're skiing from 6,000 down into valleys of the 4,000s and then peaked out at the Swiss Peak of Chevenay that I looked up at about 7,000 feet. From there, skied into Switzerland in into blustery conditions. Of course, above the clouds, a lot more sunshine, a lot more thermal and solar warmth there. But the wind was blowing a little bit and it was noticeably colder. I would say in the low 30s, where the valley was 15 degrees in the 45s,
Okay.
probably 45 degrees warmer.
Yeah, more snow, so it made for better conditions. There were more trails in that system, right? So I think that helped with some of the crowding. So with less crowding, there's better conditions, obviously. So we didn't hit many patchy spots. Matter of fact, there were no patchy spots from Averia on. So
Yeah.
good snow depth. Um, you know, and this is the type of snow that fills in the trees. You're not running that southeast Tennessee where there's, fake snow down the run and it looks like springtime and just off the side. So it was enjoyable. That's what we saw day 2. That's why we knew we had to go back that direction day 3.
Okay. Guys, if I understand it, Ben almost had the opportunity to use his Garmin inReach Mini, in the service of another. Walk us through whatever that was.
Well, we all found ourselves at our most fatigued after a long day of skiing in France and making our way to Averia and coming all the way back down into the Lindre Valley, which was the long blue coming from the top of Switzerland. So we're in the valley. We're flanked with what I'll call 45-degree soil sediments and sand, snow with some exposed rocks. And then about 100 to 200-foot cliff. And then you're kind of up on the top of a next mountain where there's like lifts and people skiing. right? Where there's other lifts. So we had come down from there and other people ski from there. Well, again, caught in my peripheral vision, and because I have some buddies that are active gliders and like to ride paramotor, I saw a glider in my peripheral vision. And then I saw another one flanked to my right. And they kind of, what I noticed was kind of like a corkscrew, a pigtail, or two figure eights. And then one guy landed. The second glider was not so lucky. That, who ended up being a female, performed the first loop. And when she came down, when gravity took her down on that first loop, she narrowly avoided the bluff and screamed because of it. The second time she went up and came back down again, she struck the 45-degree embankment on what we saw as raw rock. And what we came to notice and observe, thankfully, was a gal that clearly got the wind knocked out of her, was still for over a minute, slowly gathered her breath, and slowly gathered her pack up and crawled down the mountain.
Walked away?
Well,
Yes, sir.
John, wait a second now.
She's my hero, and I'm trying to get her phone number.
Well, and you should, because I heard the scream, so I didn't see it the same time Jesse did, but I heard the scream and I saw the impact, and she didn't move for a while. And we stood there and we thought we needed to get help, and really nobody looked as alarmed as we were. We were the most alarmed people at Port du Soleil. And
what I was sure of, that
ahead.
I was the closest human being to her direct point. So at least I had my eyes fixed on her. Because if you put your head down and click back into your skis and looked up, she's still a couple hundred yards from me. And you have to go over a creek, and like you'd lose her because she was being so still.
Okay.
There was an element of camouflage too. She was still a speck no bigger than my finger as you hold it out. It's very small on the side of this mountain.
Yeah, we're talking about a sheer face that has mostly rock showing with a little snow mixed in. And, she was in darker colors. To Jesse's point, we saw her moving around. We made contact with some people in her party, and they had her on the phone. So we didn't activate the inReach button, but when we saw that, she was a couple hundred yards up, and she's got all this gear, and how do you get down? There was no just put your skis back on and ski out of it. And you're in ski boots, so not exactly ideal for mountaineering. Just incredible. It took, we observed it for an hour. We went and got a coffee and watched it. She eventually got down. We didn't see a helicopter come in, but it was unbelievable.
That's crazy. That is crazy. She paraglided into a sheer rock face and I don't know, I guess oozed her way down and then lived to tell the story. Unbelievable.
Yeah, and we never saw her get down, but as we were having our coffee and our pre-run suds, we could see her with the skis kind of, over her shoulder and her pack and kind of, traversing sideways across on both feet. So, she got lucky.
Wow. No kidding. No kidding. In a minute, I want to talk about the après ski scene, which was bananas. But final thoughts on day 3 skiing. Sounds like you found the magic finally. I'm properly jealous. And I've already gone in to see my knee doctor to talk about next year. So, final thoughts on skiing day 3 Ports du Soleil. Would you go back?
Yes.
I'd absolutely go back. I have a plan in my head of long runs that we want to take when there's a lot more snow and a lot more able bodies to be able to see this mountain in its full potential. And I do want to talk a little bit more about the skiing in Switzerland, because leaving the end of that Mosset lift and starting toward La Creuset was one of the largest feats of adversity I've overcome in a while, I'll say. Um, we were within a couple of 100 yards of what they call the Swiss wall, and we only really traversed the blue that turned down through it and kind of rode along the spine of that bowl that you could drop into at any time, which was a red or a sheer black diamond. That blue at times, because it had been skied so much, was kind of hollowed out and very high on the right and left. And there was really, because of how narrow it was and how you would want to have to ski from right or left, or just be comfortable going way faster than I wanted to be, you either had to snowplow and pizza or just constantly ski sliding to the right with your right boot facing down and your tips to the left. Well, that would constantly ski you into the bank of snow away from the sheer cliff. And there was one time that my body just would not let me put my skis forward. And I skied just a very short distance and turned again, and my tips hit the bank, and I did my closest fall of any time on the mountain. And my knees knocked a little bit when I got up.
Yeah.
And I just said, "Okay, when you go up and momentum is gonna start taking these skis down, like, Jesse, you're gonna have to pick your right foot up and point it to a place you do not wanna point it. But you have to take it that far to then be able to turn right again and to turn left again." And it was like I just said, "Jesse, you've got to go faster." And got through it and skied down to much wider ground and much, because it was a little crunchy right there because it was
Crunchy,
narrow.
packed down and frozen.
Yeah, yeah.
And John, as you described it in the last episode, it was very similar to what I envisioned based on your description of your adventure you went on, that sheer cliff. I mean, in
You
some instances, this trail or this run that we were on got, what would you say, Jesse? Maybe 15 feet wide, 20 feet wide max.
Wow.
And that's giving it some.
Yeah, and there was for a while, it was flanked on the sheer cliffside by, like, just one vinyl rope and some stakes, which was basically the part of the bowl that didn't have enough snow. And then it opened up around where it started to curve around, and people were dropping in there and skiing it, but you could just hear the sheerness of the skis against the pack and hitting those moguls and getting that audio sound and hearing how fast they had to go to traverse those moguls, and just knowing that I was just trying to make it down the blue that rode the spine that then got into a much nicer ski down to La Crosse, which got down to the bottom, well into Switzerland, into that next valley, which was another non-distinguishable from France, Morzine, or any other valley there. Quaint little coffee shops ready for you to sit down and have a beverage and rest a little bit. And by gosh, we took another rest there, didn't we?
Sure did.
Well, I can tell you this, as dicey as it might have seemed to you, if you had a small piece of vinyl tape separating you from certain death, that was a far safer situation than I had experienced before in my rental car.
Well,
Well, we had better visibility too. It's fun driving cars you're not familiar with in tight places.
All right. All right. Let's talk about après ski, please, because Jesse doesn't want to move to the party yet.
no, I was just gonna, as this, and we can edit this into a sidebar, is it was a common debate for Ben and I, and the weather was varied from place to place, but never was truly cold. The wind was never truly cutting or frigid. So we talked a lot about what clothes we wore, how we dressed, how we navigated the cold weather, how we ran vented, and how we didn't. I found myself not ever needing any more than a pair of light long john bottoms, the thinnest socks I had, and my insulated bibs. Multiple sweatpants or anything like that. The one day I tried, it got me way too hot. On the top, I wore the same long sleeve free fly bamboo shirt I wore most of the weekend. I wore a small mid layer by Kuyu. That's a real lightweight mid layer, and my jacket, and never really needed any more than that. And at times, actually, me and Ben both ran without the mid layer jacket for a while.
Okay. All right.
What
So
were your? What'd you think, Ben?
Yeah. So similar scenario. Too much stuff. Too many layers. Day one, we talked about that. Sweating, sweating hard.
Big sauna.
So big sauna in action. So the moving forward, the non-need for the dual layers on the bottom, running vents. Basically, I wore a base layer on top and bottom, and then my I had some dope snow tops and bottoms that were insulated. But dude, that was it. That's all I needed, and that was the real fun part of not walking around like Ralphie from the Christmas Story, right? Not being able to move and being able to have some fun and not sweat to death.
Well,
Yeah.
coming from the guy that brought the heated vest, it was never turned on. I don't think one time, or nor wore.
Yeah. All right. Well, speaking for myself, I hope next year you have an entirely different experience to the tune of 20 or 30 degrees below what you had this year, because I intend to be there and riding those gondolas with you, and I'm hoping for just all of the winter at Ports de Soleil next year. Okay, après ski. So I got to experience this. I went up there and met you fellas in Avaria. First of all, let me tell you, the drive from Morzine to Avaria is insane. So it has to be 20 or 30 switchbacks. On the oh shit side was very rarely a guardrail. And it was just unbelievable. And I really thought that I was leaving Morzine and just gonna take a leisurely mountain road to this other village that was just up the way a bit. It was absolutely not that. Anyway, I finally get there and I see for the first time all week that, I actually saw wintry conditions for the first time. So finally find my way to this base camp bar where you all told me to meet you. And just as soon as I showed up, that party kicked off. I've never seen anything like it. Now, look, I haven't spent a lot of time in clubs in my life, so I may be easily impressed, but that damn thing was insane. Pure bananas. Ben, describe the après ski scene in Avaria.
Well, the first word that comes to mind would be an outdoor rave.
Yeah.
It was an unbelievable vibe. The energy was it was unmatched. Everyone was there to have a good time. People were standing on the tables. Several people were standing on the tables. Hopefully, we'll roll some video in, or you can check out our Instagram reel. It's a different level. It's what we envision bars are or clubs, and then you get there and it's really just too many people in a box and it's hot and sweaty. This is a club evolved, if you will.
Yeah, I'll agree. There was a lot of moving parts that went into the production of this, and that's something that the French do well. They know how to have a good time. They like to do it outside. So, one of the first things I noticed was there's a lot of symmetry and there's a lot of visual cues in this building. It is pretty much a dome flanked by two flat decks. On the top of the shorter deck is the DJ and the large speaker wall. The DJ has plenty of area to the left and the right where the singers can sing. The guy can play saxophone. They can do a lot of their production.
Yeah, let's talk about the entertainment, because this is this starts out with just like, house music. You got a DJ doing the thing. Then you realize the vocals, I didn't even notice that there were singers at first. And they
Right.
started out just dancing and singing on the bar itself. All of a sudden you realize, like, these are two very talented singers that are providing the vocals for this this rave. And then at some point, the act kind of moves upstairs to this roof overlooking the entire deck. This is no small deck. This is a huge bar full of party people. I mean, just absolutely raging Europeans. And so the entertainment moves up to this stage that's essentially a roof/stage. You realize there's a couple singers, there's a DJ, there's a saxophone player, there's a violin player. Absolutely bananas. Had a ball. I mean, I have never in my life thought that no one's ever said to me, "John, would you like to go to a rave?" And I've said yes, but that was fun.
Well, and don't, give the people what they want, John. Did you or did you not get up on the table and dance with some Englishmen?
Well, my, pride in my, American heritage was challenged, and, basically
Upheld.
I, basically had to do it, basically, they talked a lot of shit. I took it as long as I could, and I got up there, and, we're probably gonna cut this out of the podcast.
Well, there was a lot of production going into it, into the whole planning of the party and a lot of engineering. One of the first things that I noticed was being the rank amateur woodworker that I am, was the engineering that went into the tables and chairs because, boys, an American picnic table would not have lasted a fortnight at this party.
God,
These tables were made out of 4x4s and 4x6 timbers that were impressively fashioned together. Not a deck screw or wood glue stuck out of any of these wooden tables that were erected all around this deck area. It was quite
You are
impressive.
the only single man in this room, in this podcast right now. Jesse, you could have started a family at that party. You're looking at the damn woodwork. There's something wrong with you, son.
That's not all I was looking at, son.
No, but to Jesse's point, I mean, every table had what, 8 to 10 adults on there dancing.
Yeah.
One thing that we should also point out that I, pointed out multiple times, but it was a real safe atmosphere. There weren't any fist fighting. There wasn't any. Hey, let me tell you something. That security that was there, you didn't want to mess up. They were serious. You could tell they were some sort of ex military or law enforcement, but specifically military. And it was a real, you go to a bar here in the United States and somebody gets on a table, you're going to jail in most scenarios, right? So it was nice how they let people have fun, but everybody kind of, was just happy to be there.
Yep.
The security was ample and efficient.
And that really kind of puts a bow on the French Alps for us, unfortunately. Let me say this. You two, your French is much improved, but you're still absolutely rubbish. I need you to practice before next year.
Merci
Get that
beaucoup.
Duolingo account going, please.
I've already switched my Duolingo back to Spanish.
Oh,
Well, we'll flip it back.
all right. Gentlemen, I just want to say thank you. It has been just a brilliant week. It's been so fun. We'll go around the room. Jesse, final thoughts. Jesse, your first time in Europe, first time with that sort of international travel. How'd it leave you?
I had never been that far from home base, and it left me looking for a lot of statistics and a lot of comparisons that I could draw in the States. And one thing I thought about was elevation. Thinking of the French Alps, of all the videos and the movies I've seen in the past. Yeah, you're up north, but I really thought the elevation would be much, much higher than comparable to Mount LeConte and Klingman's Dome, which are 6,600 feet of elevation.
Yeah.
And we're skiing below that. I found that fascinating. How far north were we in latitude? It was about 45 to 46 degrees. That's pretty good. That's comparable to where we skied before in Big Sky. And that's comparable to the Montreal and Quebec in that area of Canada. and we weren't really as high as the highest elevations I'd ever been in or where I really ever pictured. Was I disappointed? No. I was fascinated about how much ground you could travel from valley to really great ski area, to valley to above a cloud line to a total new area and total new townships or communes that they call them in France. Being able to go from one area to the other was what really what I thought was special, because they all looked a little different, but not being too far away as far as latitude and altitude of where I've been before.
There are a lot of optical illusions out there. So you're right. So both of you have been at elevations higher than anything you touched in Europe because you've been to Big Sky Resort that can take you to, on average, about 9,000 feet, sometimes up to 11. You go to Lone Peak. But without question, the mountains that we were on in the Alps seem much, much, much more massive. And I don't know to the degree to which that's an optical illusion or this is all just relativism here, but you're right, Jesse. You can find yourself surprised by exactly where on the globe you are, what that means compared to where you live. I guess what we've learned is the earth is not flat.
At least in that area.
Ben, what were your final thoughts?
Yeah, well, I think this whole experience going to Europe, right? There's a lot of new exposure to new things. The food, the water, the wine. These are things that we just don't experience. So that was a real big takeaway, and I'm kind of upset, and my palate is upset with what we've come back to. But as far as the skiing goes, the biggest difference that I think between like a Big Sky or places like that and my limited experience, this was unique because there was kind of community around it. Every lift had a shop or a cafe at every lift, right? And that's different than a lot of places. And then every little valley had a different village, and they all kind of, treated you the same, acted the same. Maybe when we went to the Switzerland side, we heard a little Dutch, but for the most part, being able to kind of ski in and ski out of communities, see different things, that was super unique. And we didn't see it all. I think, I'd have to check my Garmin stats, but we only went a handful of miles, maybe 10 to 15 miles of the vast 350 plus mile system. So there's definitely reasons to go back. There's plenty of more food to eat and wine to drink. So, I'm game. We just need to book it.
More to do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Gentlemen, thank you for being such great companions on just a life trip, something we're never going to forget, even as we intend to go back, and I'm ready to book it. My takeaways are pretty simple. I do want to go back. I want to get this knee rehabbed, and I'm not giving up on skiing. You guys had so much fun that I'm just kind of making it a personal mission to get back on skis, because I got to tell you, in the last couple of months, it's been pondered whether or not I'd ever ski again. And I haven't really owned up to that, but I think I can get back out there, and I want to do it with the two of you, and our wives and our friends, and I want to do it in France. So let's get back out there. Second biggest takeaway is no more trash California wine ever.
They make wine?
California wine. We're going old world from now on because that's far superior. Fellas, thank you. This puts a bow on Field Notes from the French Alps. This is the Rank Amateur Podcast. My name is John. Ben Wyatt's the co-host. Big thanks to Jesse for joining us for these Field Notes. I have a feeling we're going to see him again. And finally, thanks to our sponsor, Hop Passport. Until next time.